Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Tauke, and I teach in the Department of Architecture at the University of Buffalo, State University of New York. I'm very happy to be with you today. I would like to thank our panel chair, Yelena, for being so supportive, and I hope all of you have a very good conversation today. I hope you're having a wonderful time in Vancouver, and I'm a little bit jealous of you because I'm here in snowy Buffalo. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started with the presentation. Okay, so now we can pull this up. While we're pulling this up, I would like to describe this person who is writing that teeter-totter. That's Dr. Sue Weideman. She is one of the leading inclusive design researchers in the US. And given that this is Women's History Month, I thought it would be wonderful to at least show someone who has been leading the pack for a long time. This presentation is going to be about an inclusive design framework for practice and research. Inclusive design expresses a commitment to diversity and inclusion, and more accurately communicates the continuous process of evolving ever more responsive solutions to changing human realities. Inclusive practice then focuses on the relationship of design to our transforming societies. Given inclusive design's values-based nature, the how of practice is as important as the what. In 2020, my colleague Corridon Smith and I proposed an underlying framework for inclusive practice. This participatory approach centers on a wider range of human needs that ultimately lead to both self and community actualization. Applying the inclusive practice framework to housing might elucidate some of the key factors of this values-based approach. The first one is people and their needs come first. So here you see Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you can see the 5 elements that he deemed necessary to achieve well-being. Now, most of our homes provide basic needs, as well as safe and healthy living environments. While inclusive design might address these basic needs, it prioritizes psychological and fulfillment needs. I should note here that later on, Maslow expanded the actualization component of this pyramid to include community actualization as well. For example, to encourage belongingness, a designer might concentrate on ways that the home connects to the neighborhood. A front porch with openings that face neighbors promotes interaction and thus potential relationships. The second is recipients of design participate on the team. Typically, designers consult with those who are paying the fees. In the case of housing, this would be the homeowners. But who else might be involved? Children, a living grandmother, a caretaker? Encouraging all stakeholders to be actively engaged in the design process has many benefits. These individuals have direct knowledge that can lead to recommendation and even some new ideas. Suppose that a live-in caretaker on the team describes the difficulty she has helping her patient with toileting. This concern could lead to new spatial configurations in the bathroom and perhaps even a new toilet design. Third, power relationships are equal. While team members' roles and expertise might vary in topic and scope, all members and their contributions are considered equally important. This approach is antithetical to most current design practices. Imagine a team for a multifamily housing complex that considers the maintenance staff's concerns as important as the developers. How would that shift impact both the design process and result? Dismantling unnecessary power constructs can help to empower those who are often positioned on the margins. The ultimate goal here involves listening closely and learning from everyone at the table to develop proposals that more closely resonate with those served. The fourth, human diversity and life experiences are valued. This not only requires awareness, understanding, and appreciation of various worldviews, it also involves creating and/or allowing space for different activities, routines, and practices based on those worldviews. If this appreciation is fostered, design teams will begin to see issues affecting housing design that move beyond the standard practice and instead respond to needs revealed by diversity characteristics. In this case, I'm showing you a triptych that was photographed by Milton Rogovin. He's a well-known social photographer, and he did a longitudinal study where he went back to the same neighborhood every 10 years for a very long time and photographed the same people in their same houses. It's a very interesting project. For example, if we're thinking about this, how might needs and desires that arise from political beliefs translate into the physical spaces of a home? Now, who do you think would be more likely to require a safe room? Who would be more likely to insist on a net zero house? At the same time, when we're thinking about these issues, designers should be cautioned against making too many assumptions. The next, fifth, cultural contexts and situational factors determine the approach. Cultural context refers to the beliefs, customs, values, and practices shared among a group of people. Situational factors are external influences that might impact people's lives. They can be group, location, or even event-oriented, but unlike cultural context, they can also apply to the individual rather than to group circumstances. Cultural contexts often inform situational factors and vice versa. So for example, most design-related research is conducted in Western contexts, and this results in descriptions of human behavior in Western rather than non-Western cultural contexts. This results in a partial sample to represent normative human functioning and its attendant design issues. Consider a one-level first floor of a home for a traditional Japanese family who's living in the US. While this might appear perfectly acceptable from a Western point of view, it is unacceptable to this family. Their home requires a space in the entryway to remove shoes and then a step up to indicate the change from a more public to a private space. Next, evidence-based decision-making and evaluation ground the process. As the public becomes more educated about the design, they are more hesitant to accept decisions without some justification. This attitude is driving the further development of evidence-based practice in which decisions are based on the best available knowledge about design issues. The design-related research base developed over the last 50 years has helped to generate at least 4 types of information: goals, guidelines, strategies, and best practices. And these provide a comprehensive knowledge base for professionals. These 4 types of information as a comprehensive set linked to research sources are necessary for a useful body of knowledge for practice. Although design research has contributed to the practice of improving relationships between people and their built environments for several decades, there are still many understudied areas related to housing. Here are just a few: policy reform, affordability, neighborhood health, environmental well-being, changing living habits, spatial organization, telework, to name just a few. And then 7, considering unintended consequences expands the scope of inquiry. Imagining every possible consequence of a design is impossible. Nonetheless, examining why specific outcomes, like this very well-known Pruitt-Igoe outcome, to examining why these outcomes are missed can reveal ways to improve standard practices. In her case study, M.J. Carroll reveals how older people were negatively affected when the execution of new housing plans neglected context. So in the early 2020s, or in the early 2000s, public officials agreed to demolish and rebuild Regent Park, an aging public housing project in Toronto, Canada. Low-income seniors, mostly immigrants, were moved from mid-20th century 3-story buildings, and that's what you see here, with ample lawns and opportunity for socialization with neighbors, to new high-rise towers with very little access to outdoors and social spaces. So in these street-level spaces, they had yard sales, they had gardens, they had barbecues, etc. But in the new development, not so much. In this case, what were really well-intentioned design team ideas but didn't work out so well. They were so focused on the first-order effects of the housing problem that they neglected to consider second-order effects, or we might call those unintended consequences. In the solving of one problem, they then created another. If the team had asked the right questions up front, they might have expanded the project boundaries to include second-order effects. So inclusive practice requires extended and more complex processes, particularly in the early stages of a process. So it might take more time up front, but that's a good thing later on. However, it is also more thoughtful, thorough, and responsive to a diverse range of needs, thereby reducing the risks of problems later on. Most important, it uses the design process to bring about social change. Now, we all know that design alone cannot overcome systemic poverty, nor can it eliminate racism or ageism, nor can it undo political oppression or genocide. Design cannot save the world, but designers cannot afford, even amidst skepticism and debate, to abandon it either. At the core of design are optimism and persistence. At the core of inclusive design are growth needs, not our deficiency needs, our growth needs, both individual and group actualization and well-being are the things that are part of our growth needs. And at the core of inclusive design are joy needs, delight and laughter. And these are so very important in the quality of our lives. As such, we are all asked to be thoughtful, socially conscious designers who consider all the possible consequences and implications of this very not positive, not necessarily negative, but intriguing time in which we live. Thank you very much. I have my email up at the top here. I'm going to stop sharing just so I could say goodbye and wish for you a very wonderful conference. Take care, everyone.